Welcome to the Restoration Domination Podcast, where you learn actionable advice that moves the needle and helps service-based businesses dominate. Here's your host, Rico Garcia Jr.
Dominators, before we jump into the show, I've got a very, very special offer for a limited amount of clients for a limited amount of time. I've got a really exciting thing that I've been working on for the past several months, and that is I am removing the red velvet rope, and I am taking on a handful of clients for a very limited amount of time to help you with your marketing. So to say this bluntly, if your marketing sucks and if it leaves you wanting and you want more, you know that you could do more, you know that you could be getting more residential as well as commercial projects, whether that is through SEO, through PPC, through YouTube advertising, through using interactive video, as well as using some more of the direct marketing methods that I myself have employed in my organization that have allowed me to do multiple seven figures, then you're not going to want to miss this, because not only am I doing this for a limited amount of clients, but I'm also putting my money where my mouth is with the most ridiculous money back guarantee that any marketing agency has ever put out there, because I know what I'm talking about. And more importantly, I can actually deliver on the results, which is an insane 200% money back guarantee. Now, let me tell you who this is not for. This is not for the window shopper. This is not for the tire kicker. We're not going to spend 3 hours on the phone doing a consultation call and trying to figure everything out about your business if you're not ready to take action. If you're in that camp, then stay in that camp. Find another agency, find another person that can go ahead and handle your marketing for you and continue paying them a monthly fee, never seeing any results. However, if you are a dominator, if you are one of those individuals that's ready to take some action, and more importantly, want to see results, you actually want to gap the competition, and you're willing to do whatever it is that it takes in order to do so, meaning you're willing to go ahead and revamp your website, you revamp your marketing efforts, and really taking a holistic approach to your marketing, then I want to go ahead and speak to you. So in order for us to even get this relationship started, the very first thing, if this is of interest to you, is you have to fill out the application. This is just so that we get an understanding of who you are, what your business is about, and more importantly, where you're at now and where you're looking to go. If that interests you, make sure that you head on over to restorationdomination.com/marketing. Again, that's restorationdomination.com/marketing. And at that point, either myself or someone on my team will reach out to you for a sales call to make sure that everything is good and comfortable and that we're a good fit for you, you're a good fit for us, and we'll take it from there. So again, restorationdomination.com/marketing. If you've got what it takes, I'll see you on the other side. Going on, Dominators, Rico Garcia here. And this is going to be an exciting topic because Packouts is kind of fun and a little mysterious for a lot of restoration companies out there. Hopefully we can, get this, unpack some of this stuff today here on the podcast. That was really exciting to say, by the way. David, welcome to the show. Are you ready to help us dominate?
Heck yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Cool. So do me a favor, for those that may not be familiar with the company name, may not be familiar with you, give us a quick little bio as to, who you are and what you're doing into the business and how you got your start here.
So David Gavilanes, originally from New York City. Some people know this, some people don't know this. I drove a cab in New York for about 5 years before I got into the restoration industry. And that was, the best job I ever had and the worst job I ever had, all wrapped into one. But at some point, you kind of, at least for me, I decided I'm kind of done driving a cab in New York. So I decided I just need to do something else. And my parents at the time were living in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I just moved back into my parents' house. And I needed a job, and so I found a job at a company called the Contents Team, and it was. I was a contents tech, did that for a couple of years, moved out to Phoenix. A friend of mine from New York lived out there for a number of years. And I followed him out there and, just because I always enjoyed Phoenix and went out there without a job. In the process of looking for a job, I figured the best strategy would be to go someplace where somebody might know someone who could use my skill set. So at that point, I could do two things in life. I could drive a cab, and I knew contents restoration. So I walked into Fireline Training Center and spoke with the owner there and asked him, like, do you know anyone that needs a contents manager? And, we talked for a couple of days, and he decided, you know what, come work here. So I mostly worked on their magazine, worked on that for about 3 years. And at the end of my time there, I really decided that I wanted to be a contents trainer. So I started my contents training business, Real Contents Restoration Training. Did that for 4 years. And it was right at the beginning of 2020. Part of owning my business was there's this marketing effort that you have to do. As a one-man band, marketing was always a little bit of a struggle because, you've got to think of like what to say, then you've got to put it out there. And I was never necessarily the type of person that just kind of always put myself out in front, whether on LinkedIn or social, but I forced myself into it. And I had a newsletter that I put out. And so I put out my newsletter. I remember I put it out in February 2020. And Rusty Amarante from Belfour Franchise Group reached out to me. He says he wants to talk. And what he wanted to talk about was the opportunity to work at a franchise that just exclusively was based on contents restoration. And to me, that was the most exciting opportunity in the world because I'd, invested so much time into contents up to that point, and to have the opportunity to be, ground floor building something. I couldn't think of anything more exciting. So,
how ground floor exactly was this? Like, people typically say, oh, ground floor, they're like 100 employees in, but you were like early.
I was employee number one. So I'll tell you what we had. We had a brand president, Tim Fagan, tremendous leader, and we had an FDD. And I remember looking through the FDD, and it's like, I need 96 hours of training. Mm-hmm. That I have to come up with. And at the time I had about 2 to 3 days of training that my legacy training that I could roll out. And so I knew pretty quickly that's not going to cut it. So the really cool thing was COVID-19 happened, right? So I get hired in March of 2020, like early March. I start, I fly out to Michigan from Phoenix. I start just working. I'm living at a hotel. Next thing you know, I can't eat out any longer. Right. And the supermarket shelves are looking bare. And I said to Tim, is it all right if I just work from home for like a little while? So I flew back to Phoenix. But what the opportunity there was, everything kind of went on pause. But the things that I needed to get accomplished, which was, writing like an Xactimate training manual, writing a training manual for inventory software, writing our claims process review training manual. I got so much done in those early months of COVID, all the presentations, everything that, that we're using today, a lot of what we're using today, COVID was a nice advantage. And so I was early. I was like the employee that kind of put that stuff together, because at the time we had one franchisee out in Western Colorado, and we had a company store. So I had, I was able to fly with a net, which was a nice luxury. And because of the restraints of COVID, selling franchises wasn't happening very fast. Mm-hmm. So they trickled in, and I could, maneuver and play with the training and like really figure out my job there. Now, that being said, the franchise group is incredibly staffed. Like the people behind me, there's dozens and dozens of people in marketing, in accounting, in IT. There's a tremendous amount of help. But as far as like hands-on contents, coach and trainer, I was a person for a long time. We've got Michael Case and Leanne Case who have come on as coaches and trainers. So I've got a lot more help now, but early on, it was myself for the most part.
That's awesome. What was like one of the biggest challenge? I mean, obviously you had COVID, which was a little bit of a challenge, but also a little bit of a blessing too, to kind of help you polish and get some of this stuff up and off the ground. But once COVID started to kind of curve a little bit, what was your challenge from there?
So the challenge really, so think of it like this. When I had my own company and I lived in Phoenix, my life was perfect. Right. And so because of the work, right, this was an opportunity that I just, wanted so much. I just kind of went into like laser focus, blinders on. The challenge for me was, well, during COVID was the home office. I'd moved to Ann Arbor, and the home office is 13 minutes from my house, and I couldn't go there because it was closed. But because of the nature of this industry, this is a 24-hour emergency services business. Our company-owned store, so we have a company store in Mount Clemens, they weren't closed. So I could drive out there every day an hour to go work out of there. And part of the challenge was, deciding, what were the basic things that this franchise was going to be grounded on. Figuring out what inventory software was kind of a challenge because there's a couple of really good softwares out there, and we legit tested, two of the best ones. And we ended up with iCat. And the reason we ended up with iCat was literally trial and error. I got to work with the company store on this and learning. I worked with iCat a long time ago, their legacy version, but that was like years ago, right? And so many iterations of it had happened. And so I'm, really like understanding the software and learning mistakes that you can't really conceive of until like it's in practice, right? So I got to like learn that really well, but then I had to convert that entire operation onto that platform. They're on a completely different software. And so if you ever want to make, a dozen people really mad at you, have them, use a new software.
Right.
So that was part of the challenge. But it's just all stuff that you just work through. But no, starting kind of like life over in Michigan during COVID when lots of things are shut down, that was probably the hardest part. But the work side of it, there wasn't a challenge that was, so difficult that it wasn't at some point enjoyable.
Right, 100%. So let me ask you this: there's a lot of restorers out there that, and we were kind of talking about a little bit about this off camera, that kind of do contents, or they say they do contents whenever it pops up, but they have a real hard time generating business for content, or even worse, they do offer the service, but they don't offer it well. They're not really trained for it. They're, they don't have the facilities for it. They don't have the storage for it. There's a lot that goes into it. And you've obviously been in the game for a while. Talk to us about some of the challenges that you see with some of the smaller organizations, or the organizations that are not built for contents, that they face when they try to explore that particular aspect of business.
It's an investment. At the end of the day, it's an investment. If you look at, if you were to, look at some of the companies that we partner with, right, across the country, they more or less fit, a profile, at least part of them do. So, right, so you might have a water damage company. You might have a shop where you keep, your drying equipment. It might be 2,000 square feet, might be 3,000 square feet, might be as big as 5,000 square feet. To do contents right, you need space. Right now, I have a local franchisee. He's out of Ann Arbor. I'm in his warehouse. Here, he's got about 12,000 square feet. He's triple stacked. You've got to sign a lease for a building that's big enough. That's an investment. You've got to dedicate staff to contents restoration. So if I'm a water damage company, I'll have guys that are technicians, right? They go out, they do the demo, they do the mitigation. If I want to get into contents, I may have to ask them to go out and start the pack out first. That's not a skill set that can just be like taken on overnight. And I've seen it firsthand. I've worked in apartment complexes where my company would have a unit and like another just water damage company would have like their unit, and they're doing the pack out, and it's completely different, right? The mindset of doing a pack out when it's not like an actual service of yours is, all right, well, we need boxes. So typically what happens is, a company might just grab like the biggest boxes they can find and then fill the box and then pack it out. Cause, their focus is, thinking ahead towards, the demo and then, how to fix a structure. What they end up with is a storage unit, just, full of these big old boxes, lots of stuff jammed into it without any rhyme or reason. To do a pack out successfully, you pack according to what you have. You got small boxes, medium boxes, packing techniques, and it's organized a lot of times depending on, your cleaning methodology. So if you take that out of the equation and you're just like packing to just get it out of there as quickly as possible, you're not going to come back and revisit that until sometime later, till just before the structure's ready. And then, you'll go into your storage, whether it's a storage locker somewhere, a public storage, or in your warehouse. And then you'll see what you have, and then you'll think to yourself, all right, we've got to take care of this. And then you kind of go into this like last minute, cleaning stage. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it works out. Sometimes it works out and it's great. But if you do that more than 2 times, right? You can do that. Like you can house like a contents job, like 1 time. You can do 2 jobs, right? I can keep track of 2 jobs without software, just knowing what boxes came from where. I can do that, right? Once you get past 2 jobs, it can get difficult. But so there's a space you've got to invest in. And then if you really want to do it well, you got to have, a staff that's dedicated to it, right? People that are just, more meticulous at wrapping, at caring for things. And then, so now you're adding, labor to your overhead. And if you have enough contents jobs that come through, that's great. There's a lot of good companies that have really good contents divisions, and they're really good at it, as good as anyone. But there is an investment and a dedication that has to be made to make it happen.
100%. Yeah. And there's a lot of companies. I mean, myself, I was one of them. I would sub all of that out. Just like companies that were dedicated to doing that, have at it. Like I want none of that action whatsoever. I just didn't want, and again, it's a different relationship with the customer a lot of times, right?
Yeah. That's, if you were to ask, what's a differentiator with, Blue Kangaroo Packoutz, it's our business owners. At the end of the day, I think you've got to be someone that communicates well. Because on the front side of that process, that claims process, everything's got to come out. And what's total loss? Communicating total loss to a customer can be tricky, right? Because everyone has the idea that, if there is an insurance claim, that they've somehow won something. Mm-hmm. Like, is there like a cashback rebate? Like, am I getting all new things? And it's not really that way. If something can be salvaged, we'll salvage it. And if we can't, then that's on your total loss list. Mm-hmm. And then how do you compile that list, right? So having just that little bit of communication means a lot to the homeowner, having them understand the process. Just having someone walk into a job and say, these are our next 5 steps, right? Like right now, we're just doing an evaluation. We'll schedule a pack out. We'll create your total loss list. We'll get everything out. We'll start processing. We'll send you an email. You have a list of your inventory. We'll have a list of, what's non-salvageable. You'll have that discussion with your adjuster and just giving them a roadmap of just what's coming, right? Whereas if they don't feel they have that basic level of communication, it's stress. And the claims process never actually ends until their stuff is back. And I can tell, because I've been, on packbacks where, the homeowner's been through a lot. It could be like a months long process. We come back and all of a sudden everything we promised, is there. Like all their stuff is back. All their stuff is back clean. We're unpacking things. We're putting things back in place. And they're starting to see, all right, this is really over. And it's only when that pack back happens is that when the customer actually gets that sense. Mm-hmm. And you'll see it on their face.
Right.
The sooner the time comes when you're like packing your stuff out to leave and they're done, you can visibly see that relief on their face. And I've had bad experiences, right? Early on, I've had some jobs that didn't go great, and I didn't see that expression on the homeowner's face, and I felt badly about it because it's like, what did you leave them with? Mm-hmm. And it was as early, lessons, in my career where I said to myself pretty early on, if I'm going to do this for any longer, I've got to be good at this. It's got to be to where every time I bring stuff back, that customer has has got to feel that relief that I know is possible. I mean, that's what we do more than anything. We really just bring this whole thing to an end for them in a positive way.
Now, let me ask you this. In your experience, because I think that there's something to learn about how to do things well and to learn from success stories. But I think that there's almost more to learn from when things break down, because I think that that's like a harder anchor. When jobs go sideways from a pack out perspective, right? In general, I'm just talking about like you guys, I'm just talking in the industry in general, when people try to do pack outs, what are like, do you have a like top 3, top 4 general things that normally is where this process breaks down or it just makes the end consumer have a horrible experience?
Yeah, that's easy. You know, it's always, you can listen, anybody can like pack out. If you've moved, you've packed out, right?
Right.
Typically a home move is like point A to point B. We're going from point A to like a warehouse with other jobs located in there. The breakdown really can happen in that processing. If you're not obsessed with keeping track of things, you can you can fail at this, and that's one of the things, I can remember about, my time, being on those jobs is, especially with, inventory software, right? You've got to know your inventory software really well. You got to know it like frontwards and backwards. And so that you got to recognize when something's failed. When you upload your inventory and you go back there, and if you recognize that something on that dashboard isn't right, there might be a piece of content that you remembered from the job. You might say, I just want to make sure this is in vault 302. And you go there and you don't see it. And then, you freak out. Right. And it's moments like that like sharpen, the sword for you, right? So, I mean, that's an easy breakdown, just not keeping track of things. And I think, being comfortable that you have everything on the day of the pack out. Again, just being, because listen, on the jobs, if you're the person actually communicating to the customer, if you're the face of the job, because on a pack back, you might have, half a dozen people or more, and they've got their job to do, and that's fine. But my job is to be the person that talks to the customer and make sure she's comfortable and make sure that, we have everything. And if there's something that's either broken or missing, I'm the face of it. So, it's just, it's not, me being selfish that I want to have a good experience. It's just that, hey, listen, like it's about being professional. So what you do is just making sure that you have everything before you leave. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of an easy mistake would be assuming you have everything and then just loading the truck and then just, all right, let's go. And then just rush in there and just start unloading stuff. And at some point, someone's going to ask, well, you'd be surprised, like a company will forget like your sofa. Mm-hmm. Or a chair, like something like a stove, like right. Big things get forgotten, right? So it's not like a box of miscellaneous items that somebody may have noticed. It can be pretty big. So just to me, that's the thing, that if you can just be laser focused on just knowing that you have everything and being familiar with your inventory software, you'll be fine.
So one of the things that I want to talk about is because again, you mentioned if you've ever moved, you've kind of done a pack out. One of the industries that has horrible reviews, generally speaking, across the board is the moving industry, right? And typically it's because of breakage, it's because of lost items, but typically it's because of items being damaged, right? Actually, if we're talking about a fire project, our industry, it's like, look, it was kind of already damaged to begin with, of course, that's never a good excuse, but for water mitigation jobs, things like that, maybe mold, things of that nature, where items need to be packed out of a house. One of the issues that concerns a lot of people is breakage and damage to existing pieces of furniture, sometimes artwork, things of that nature. And I think that holds a lot of the smaller restorers back, or even larger restorers that don't really have this ironed out division, right? Because damage is going to happen. How does one handle that? But before you answer that, let me just take a quick moment and thank our sponsors. All right, Dominators, if you want everything to gain and absolutely nothing to lose when it comes down to marketing, you're going to want to listen to this very, very short message because I do have a very special offer for you. For the past several months, I've been working behind the scenes to go ahead and remove the red velvet rope to my marketing and provide that as a service, as the marketing agency to the restoration arena. For the past several years throughout the podcast, we've been getting tons of calls, tons of emails, tons of text messages, and it's always about the same thing. How can we get more customers? How can I increase the amount of money that I'm making based on my marketing efforts? Because A, my marketing company sucks, or B, nothing seems to work, or whatever the case may be, right? So bottom line is what I'm doing for a limited amount of time, for a limited amount of clients, is I am actually taking you guys on as marketing clients and literally giving you everything that you need in order to be successful. And more importantly, I'm actually backing this up, putting my money where my mouth is, which no other company is doing. And that is offering the most insane money back guarantee. And to be more specific, a 200% money back guarantee. If we don't perform, we don't show you what we need to show you, you don't even pay. So you get the marketing for free, plus you make money just for saying yes. Literally for you, this is a win everything and absolutely nothing to lose. There is nowhere where you can lose on this deal. Either way, you're going to walk out an absolute champion. However, I do have some restraints as to who we're bringing on with this deal. It's not about how big your company is or how much revenue it is that you're doing. It's simply about filling out the application first so that I can get an idea of who you are, what you're looking to do, and what direction your company's going in. And the second criteria is you cannot be a window shopper. You cannot be a tire kicker. I'm only looking to go ahead and work with a certain type of client that's able to go ahead and look at the facts and make a decision right then and there, because frankly, you don't have the time to be wasted, and I don't have the time to be wasted, because at the end of the day, we've all got bigger fish to fry, and this just so happens to be some of it. And because we're only doing this for a handful of clients out of everybody that listens to the show, trust me when I tell you, these opportunities are going to go ahead and fill out fast, and someone you're in your competitive market might take me up on this, and that'll be the end of it. So the bottom line is, if you want to go ahead and participate and have us take a look at your organization and jump on a discovery call, a sales call, consulting call, whatever it is that you want to go ahead and call it, the first step is jump on to restorationdomination.com/marketing, fill out the application, let us know exactly who you are, what you're looking to do. And then from there, we'll go ahead and either someone on my team or myself will get in contact with you and we'll take it from there. All right. So so we're talking about damage because it seems like it's eventually it's going to happen, right? How is that handled? How can it, what can you do to try to prevent it? You should try to get, the absolute best service out there. I mean, what normally is the approach and the mindset and maybe the SOPs that you have in place to secure that?
Yeah, so you said a couple of things. And so first with like the moving industry, there's some excellent movers out there, right? Household movers, and they'll take you across the country, and it can be a phenomenal experience. But the thing that they run into is it's just the economy of just what it takes to run a successful moving business. The margins are pretty slim in that industry. So they're in a time crunch because, they'll bid the job out. A lot of times just by weight, you'll do like a questionnaire survey with a moving company, and they'll give you a quote. And there's so many moving companies. And the thing is, so moving companies, you're talking about like a business to consumer like industry, right? So competition is fierce, right? So they've got to be, extremely, their pencil's got to be sharpened really well to make a profit in that industry, which means that, their turnaround times have got to be pretty tight. Now with the restoration industry, we have some advantages. So first and foremost, we have the opportunity to just scope a loss. A lot of, your breakage can be mitigated just by walking a loss carefully and taking note of some things that, need extra care. I can, so many people have, so many different things in their homes that are just unique. Somebody might have like a sculpture that's made of like like construction paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Piece of artwork, and it's been painted, and you're thinking to yourself, holy cow, I could break this, moving this into another room because it's so delicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have the opportunity to like walk the job and think to yourself, all right, I need to find a box that size, and I might need packing peanuts just for that one thing, right? You have the opportunity to think about it. You know, we take a lot of pictures. We do Matterport imaging on every job. And so even if we didn't write it down, we can go back and look at those images and do a walkthrough. I'm in Ann Arbor, and I get, I get a lot of calls from my franchisees. I probably talk to 3 franchisees a day on average. And it can be anything from like, helping an estimate to just, hey, this is a job. Can you look at the Matterport for me? And we'll walk through there, and just that opportunity to just walk through a job virtually is probably the single thing that can give us an advantage on just game planning, preparing.
Particularly like the Matterport type of technology, right?
It's phenomenal. Yeah, we do it. We use it on every job, partly for that reason, but just for, a big part of it's CYA.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a scratch here? Was this broken?
Right.
But mostly we use it for game planning.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think I think that once you get into the habit of using that kind of technology, it's kind of hard to like not. It also facilitates, because again, you're in somebody's home, you're walking around, you're doing your thing, your mind's going in a million different directions. And it's nice to know that you can kind of sit back, maybe a couple hours later, and it's like you could relive it all over again with excruciating detail. Once you get used to that, it's a totally different game.
No, if I had 2 of me's, right? If one was on the job site walking the job and one was at the Matterport on the computer, I could probably, have an easier time scoping loss through the Matterport. When you're on the job site, you're walking through the debris. You might be in conversations with, the contractor, the homeowner. If there's an adjuster on site, those conversations are happening. But when you're just clicking through the job site, the dollhouse on Matterport, it's a little bit easier.
Right. Let's talk about your ideal franchisee. Because I know that there's, we get tons of emails, from our listeners and whatnot, and there are all sorts of different shapes and sizes of organizations. Some of them do packouts, other have questions about packouts. How do you get into this? How do you get into that? So talk to me about like your ideal franchisee for the independent out there that's not part of a franchise. Some of them kind of feel some kind of way about, hey, do I really want to, be a franchisee? Right? What are the benefits for me being a franchisee? What do I really get? Why can't I just figure this out all by my lonesome, just like I figured out my restoration company, right? So kind of, in this roundabout way, I mean, make a case for packouts and like why some organizations, why you think it might be a good fit for them.
It might be or it might not be. And my heart's with independents. I love independent, restoration companies. I worked for one for a number of years. And when I had my training business, they were mostly independents. And I understand and I empathize greatly with the business owners that, that started their company. The guy I worked for in Raleigh, he started a lot of the older owners in our industry came from like the mid 80s, right? A lot of that generation, I started my company I was just a van, I was a man in a van, mid 1980s, and then they'll grow it to like, multi-million-dollar businesses. Like I have so much, love and respect for those people. And so many of them are like exiting the business now because it's so many years later. But, I just always, I want to give those guys a shout out. But the thing about a franchise is what we do is we don't necessarily, look to bring in an independent restoration company and convert them, right? I think kind of the path of least resistance is to bring in just someone that's looking to kind of enter a new business. And I think for that person, we make a lot of sense. I always think of it like the old TV show Quantum Leap, right?
Oh, wow.
I know. Scott Bakula just appears somewhere, right? And he's in a warehouse. And so that's what we do, right? So we'll take someone who might not have restoration experience, and we drop them into restoration business. And, when they open their doors, sometimes it's full steam ahead. Sometimes it can get, like really busy for them. And we're here to, walk them through those situations and help them, build their business. We have had some restoration companies, join us. And, what we do is, listen, we offer, dozens of SOPs. We have a franchise. A franchise is a very disciplined organization. If you want to join a franchise, I would say, are you prepared to, follow a structure? And if that's what you're ready for, if you feel that, I've done contents and I never really found a groove. We'd be perfect for you, because we carved the groove, and you just got to ride it with us.
I love that. Talk to us about what some of the marketing looks like, and how businesses can go ahead and get more business, right? Because again, the packouts is one of those things where the homeowner typically isn't going to like Google or Bing and be like, hey, I need packouts because they don't know even the terminology, right? So what does that process normally look like? What do these marketing efforts normally look like in the packouts arena?
That's something I've given a lot more thought to, working at this company. When I had my training business, I was so hyper-focused on, operations, trying to get people to, to level up on their operational skills. And working here, it's the marketing aspect of it is, so much more crucial. And right away, the first thing I realized when I started here is, on the marketing side, this is not, a business that's straight to consumer. So it's a B2B business. And the opportunities, to reach out to someone, aren't as great as it would be if it was a straight to consumer business. Social is a big part of, the marketing, like, showing firsthand, what the projects look like, building that trust with restoration companies that, we're a professional company. We can execute on what we say. So that's a big part of it. The brand is a big part of it. As we grow, that marketing effort's you're gonna see it's gonna be a lot more visible. Right now we're at 65 owners. So with each location that we have around the country, just the mere presence of just the vans everywhere. My LinkedIn page, it's just like Blue Kangaroo Packoutz, owner after owner, just up and down. Same on Facebook. But is that going to drive business? It'll drive awareness. I think what drives business for content for any B2B business is sales, right? So if you look at, if I were to make a pie chart of, sales and marketing, it's going to be overwhelmingly that sales effort. Part of my responsibility, as a regional business coach, is make a site visit. And early on, when a business opens, I get in the car with my new business owner, and we make sales calls. A lot of our business owners are really good at sales, and so I tag along, in case there's a question that's a little more technical that I'd be more than happy to answer. But it's going out and meeting someone. How many touches can you make, and just that it's a very personal business, because essentially what we're asking is, can we come onto your claim? Can you trust us enough to say, all right, I believe you're good people. I've got this claim. This is my customer. I want you to do this with us. That's what we're asking. And so that's a big ask. And, a commercial or like a post, that's not enough to make that happen. We've got to go out there and, and meet our partners.
I love that. Typically, like who would that perfect avatar be, right? I mean, to me, obviously the public adjuster, who has access to the claim possibly before anybody else, right? The water mitigation company, the mold remediation company, stuff like that. Are there any other little pockets of potential prospects for a packout company that maybe don't normally come right to mind, that is a nice little honey hole for contractors to go after?
It's there. I think there are. It's not going to be, it's not going to be anywhere near the 80% of work that relationship business is. There's opportunities with like property managers, right? So if you look at like rental policies are really like interesting to me because they're typically very low, and they'll it's like, oftentimes what you see happen is it's a situation where it'll pay someone just enough to move into like another apartment. And the customer, they might be at the end of their lease, or they might want to relocate anywhere. And here's an opportunity for them to just like get a free move, essentially. So that's kind of like one of those little pockets where I've been intrigued by lately.
Okay, nice. So thinking outside the box, right? Because there's always like this. There's usually like one little sector that's somewhat underserved, or that no one's really thought about, or, it's just totally unattended because it doesn't make up that 80%, right? But yet there's still some money to be made there.
Well, so right, so like on the one end, right, so there's like your renter's policy might be like one example. The complete opposite end of that would be like commercial losses. We've got franchisees. I've got a franchisee right now working on a 12-story government building in Denver, right? Packed out 4 floors. A couple months ago, they recently packed out floor number 12. I mean, these are large projects,
right?
And it's not something you think about. When you think of commercial, no one's thinking about contents, but there's stuff in every commercial business everywhere. But that's something that not a lot of people have thought about. I've had other franchisees pack out like nursing homes, and the commercial side of it. It can be lucrative. It can be big. It can be, it's one of those things where it's like, that's a big hamburger. You get the biggest hamburger in the restaurant. It's like, wow, that's a lot to chew on.
Right.
But it's a nice opportunity. It's different. The customer's different. There's not as much, sentimental value to the contents, which in a lot of ways makes it easier.
Right. So if someone's listening to the show and someone wants to get a little bit more information about, just the organization, and they're possibly thinking about, hey, this might be something that I want to add on as a bolt-on to my existing restoration business. Where should we point them to? Where should they go?
Real easy. Go to the website, bluekangaroopackoutz.com. There's a form on there. Fill it out, name, message, all those forms come to me. So you can get me one of those forms and I'll send it off to the right place.
Awesome. I love it. And again, for all those dominators out there, I am going to leave a link in the video description as well as in the show notes below. If you've liked what you've heard so far, if content is one of those things that either A, you've been considering, or if you've been kind of dabbling in, but you want a little bit more of a well thought out roadmap for that particular division, and this might be a good fit for you, then by all means, go ahead and click the link below and reach out to David. And from there, you guys can kind of make a decision and see how you can scale your business to the next level. And David, I just wanted to go ahead and say thank you so much for taking the time, for hanging out here with us today. And I wish you the best, and can't wait to potentially have you back on the show in the next couple of years and see how you're doing.
Rico, it's been my pleasure.
Awesome. And Dominators, remember, go ahead and check out the link, see if this is a good fit for you. Obviously, there's tons of opportunity if you can master this particular section of your business. And I think that when you can hold on to the coattails of individuals that have already done it, and they have the SOPs and they have the roadmap, sometimes that just makes so much more sense. But as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Hustle, hack, dominate. Catch you soon.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, your #1 resource for tips, tricks, and hacks to help your business grow. Subscribe to our channel and follow us for more Restoration Domination. And follow our host at Rico Garcia Jr. on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.